When you think of Bloody Mary, some of you might picture the famous spicy cocktail mixed with vodka and tomato juice. Others might know Bloody Mary through a scary ghost story, where you stand in front of a mirror and whisper her name multiple times. It's said that after chanting her name 3 times, or 13 times depending on the version you know, her spirit will appear to reveal your future. She might show you an image of your future spouse, or perhaps a skull, signaling that you will die before you have a chance to marry. If you ever heard this story as a child, your friends probably dared you to summon her spirit while playing together. And perhaps, like many of us, you were too scared and gave up after only saying her name twice. But hidden behind that terrifying name is a real historical figure, Mary I of England. In history, Mary has long been seen as a frightening figure, and the title Bloody Mary was not given to her without reason. Considered one of history's cruelest queens, her short 5-year reign is infamous for the burning alive of many Protestants in an effort to reverse the English Reformation. She ordered executions by fire, forcing many to watch others in the same predicament burned alive, only to suffer the same fate themselves afterward. To say she was cruel is an understatement. She plunged all of England into horror and chaos without mercy. When we say without mercy, we are absolutely serious. She even had pregnant women burned if they were considered heretics, all due to religious fanaticism. But what turned a beloved little princess into such a terrifying queen? Was Mary truly a cruel villain? Or was she in fact a victim of unfortunate circumstances and the immense suffering in her life? In this video, we will delve deep into her life story for you to decide for yourself. Before becoming the infamous queen, Mary was just a little girl. She was born in 1516, the only surviving child of King Henry VIII and Queen Catherine of Aragon. Her early years were wonderful. She was a little princess, beloved by both her father, her mother, and the English people. Mary's birth was extremely important because she was the first child to survive after many failed pregnancies or infant deaths suffered by her parents. This meant that she was the only heir to the English throne. Her mother, Catherine, prepared Mary from a very early age to become a promising queen. Catherine taught Mary Latin, a language considered for men at the time, so she could assume the supreme role of a monarch. Henry himself was also very proud of his daughter and once called her my pearl in the world. However, a problem existed. Mary was a daughter. Although Henry was proud of his daughter's achievements later on, that was still not enough for him. King Henry VIII still desperately desired a son to inherit the throne, consolidating the young Tudor dynasty. As the daughter of the King of England and the Princess of Spain, Mary was a hot commodity on the European political chessboard. She was often betrothed to the sons of other powerful rulers to forge alliances and political advantages. At age 11, her future marriage was considered more seriously, seeming almost secured. But before Mary could enter a successful marriage, a horrific event occurred, changing her life forever. That was when her father, Henry, became infatuated with Anne Boleyn and wanted to divorce her mother, Catherine. This was the biggest, most defining event in Mary's life. From the moment Henry VIII became infatuated with Anne Boleyn and decided to divorce Catherine, Mary's life took a completely different turn, one where she never again experienced a single day of happiness. You might think, oh, many children's parents get divorced, not everyone becomes a murderer. But remember, at that time, especially for royalty, divorce was much more serious than it is today. This was not just an ordinary divorce, but an event that forever changed the course of English history. A series of negative consequences from this momentous change caused deep psychological trauma in Mary's life. Besides the chaotic political context, Mary's health was also poor. She suffered from severe menstrual problems, which modern medicine today suggests could be endometriosis. She endured agonizing cramps, which royal physicians at the time called her frequent trouble or old disease. Physical pain tormented her, coupled with erratic hormonal fluctuations, often causing her to fall into severe depression, further increasing her misery. Today, we understand that stress can exacerbate the symptoms of endometriosis, and Mary had to endure immense stress when Anne Boleyn appeared. A particularly severe outbreak of pain occurred in 1531, right after Henry forced her mother Catherine to leave court and began treating Anne as the future queen. But the biggest shock was the rejection by the very father she once adored. When Henry allowed himself to divorce after being refused by Pope Clement VII, he declared Mary illegitimate, asserting that he had never been legally married to her mother. He transformed from a loving, doting father in Mary's early years into a cruel, neglectful parent. To divorce Catherine and marry Anne, Henry had to make extreme changes. He separated England from the Roman Catholic Church and established his own Church of England. This was a devastating blow to Mary, as she was a devout Catholic and always followed her mother's example. The new Protestant Reformation was a major factor, adding to Mary's deep sadness, because her Catholic faith was extremely important to her, and she refused to abandon it. In this context, many English people remained loyal supporters of Mary, siding with her and sympathizing with both her and her estranged mother. She was shamefully put aside, publicly humiliated by her father's cruel neglect and mistreatment. She was demoted from the noble position of a princess to a lady-in-waiting for her half-sister Elizabeth, daughter of Anne Boleyn, who now had the right to the throne above her. Mary was only a shell of her former self. She had to watch the little Elizabeth enjoy what was once her life. It's clear that Henry VIII was very cold towards the daughter he once claimed to love. Naturally, Mary must have felt very jealous of Elizabeth, sad, neglected, and unloved. This clearly diminished Mary's status, position, and self-esteem, as she lost her father's affection. Worse yet, she was no longer allowed to see her mother. It was around this time that Mary again suffered another intense outbreak of pain from her endometriosis. Undoubtedly, this was a very lonely and gloomy period for Mary, a period that only ignited and fueled her resentment in later years, when she longed for revenge for all the suffering she had been forced to endure. While all these changes were happening, the widespread but quiet belief among the people was that the king was making a mistake, enchanted by Anne Boleyn, and was turning his back on God by abolishing the Catholic faith. Many asserted that Mary still had a legitimate claim to the throne despite being stripped of her title as princess. The people loved her mother, Catherine, but hated Anne for essentially being a homewrecker. For this reason, Anne was considered a harlot, and Mary was seen as a heroic symbol of resistance in the hearts of the English people. Mary's refusal to recognize her mother's annulled marriage, acknowledge Anne as queen, and give up her own position as princess had her father absolutely furious. During this time, Mary was in a very precarious situation. Her very existence was questioned with whispers of potential charges of treason. The year 1536 brought two major events, decisive turning points for her future. First, Mary's mother died, causing her even deeper grief. She was so depressed she couldn't be comforted and no longer believed there was a life for her in England. She desperately wanted to go to Spain, her mother's homeland. But then something else changed. Anne Boleyn was ordered executed by Henry on charges believed to be fabricated. Mary was extremely pleased with Anne's death. She had hated Anne for ruining her life. Anne's death also brought Mary a sense of new hope for the future. Perhaps her father had changed his mind. Immediately, Mary wrote to him, hoping to be welcomed back to court and regain his favor. But in response, Henry wrote that he was still displeased with Mary's stubbornness and still wanted her to obey his laws. Even though Anne Boleyn was out of his life, Henry continued to pressure his daughter, Mary, to acknowledge herself as illegitimate and her mother's marriage to him as illegal. He forced her to sign a legal declaration acknowledging this. Mary was fully aware that she could be executed if she didn't sign. After all, if Henry could kill his wife, he could certainly kill his daughter. For the Tudors, family drama could be deadly, and not only Mary's life was in danger, but also the lives of her most prominent supporters. Therefore, Mary reluctantly signed the dreadful document against her conscience. As a reward, she was welcomed back to court, regained her father's love, and was restored to the line of succession. This brought her a decade of peace. You might think this gave Mary a happy ending, but you'd be wrong. The reality is that Mary would always live with a sense of guilt and regret for acting against her beliefs, her faith in God, and the beliefs of her deceased mother, all just to save herself and her friends and supporters. But who could blame her? Nevertheless, in many ways, she was her own harshest critic. Despite regaining her father's favor, Mary did not marry during this time. perhaps because, as we all know, Henry VIII was too busy collecting and discarding his wives. Clearly, marrying off his eldest daughter wasn't his top priority, so Mary remained single for a long time. Mary gained a younger half-brother, the son and heir her father craved, Edward VI. Mary was about 31 years old when her father died, and young Edward, 9 years old, ascended the throne. Mary was second in line to the throne, followed by her sister Elizabeth, according to Henry's will before his death. But Edward, though very young, was a devout Protestant thanks to the influence of his advisors. Thus, Mary again fell into a dangerous situation due to her strong Catholic faith. This time under the hand of her brother, not her tyrannical father. Mary likely found herself in a familiar dark place again, thinking there was no future and her beloved Catholic faith would not survive in this perishing world. Years of tension and continuous monthly pain from endometriosis had tormented her, and she became a woman who looked frail and bitter. Fortunately for Mary, Edward's reign did not last long. He fell ill and died at age 15. Not wanting his Catholic sister Mary to take the throne, Edward requested on his deathbed that his Protestant cousin, Lady Jane Grey, would succeed him. Lady Jane Grey reigned for only 9 days. Mary's supporters rose up to help her reclaim her rightful place on the throne. At age 37, Mary's reign as Queen finally began. Mary entered London in a triumphal procession in 1553. The English people wept with joy, rejoicing as the beloved daughter of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon had finally ascended the throne. Few knew what awaited them. They seemed unaware of the extent of Mary's anger and contempt. She was a queen driven by accumulated resentment and intense religious obsession. She was determined to restore the Catholic faith and seek revenge on those who had made the last 25 years of her life miserable, especially the Protestants. She quickly became an unpopular queen by initiating mass executions and burnings. This is how she earned her bloody reputation. Over 300 people were burned alive during her reign. The brutality of death by fire is unspeakable. Why did she do this? Mary believed she was doing good, saving England from heresy, which was considered treason against God and deserved the severest punishment. She was totally and personally committed to this policy. A prime example of this cruelty is the execution of Thomas Cranmer, the Archbishop of Canterbury, whom Mary held responsible for her past misfortunes. The sequence of events in this case is shocking. Cranmer initially recanted his Protestant declarations under pressure, but ultimately publicly renounced his recantation right before being burned alive. Mary personally intervened to ensure Cranmer was still burned, despite recanting. This event, particularly Cranmer putting his right hand into the fire first to burn it, the hand that signed the recantation, became a powerful martyrdom for the Protestant side. To bind England more closely to Catholicism, she married Philip II of Spain. Philip was the son of Emperor Charles V and came from her mother's Catholic homeland. Although Mary worshipped her husband and was infatuated with him, there are no records of how he felt about her. We can speculate that he did not feel the same way. Evidence includes widespread rumors that Philip had mistresses and praise from Philip's confidants about his ability to handle a woman from whom he could expect neither carnal pleasure nor satisfaction. Mary at age 38 was not considered attractive. Her appearance had faded from years of emotional and physical pain. A Spaniard commented quite harshly on her appearance. "The Queen is not beautiful, not at all. Low stature, slender rather than fat, her hair is very white and fair. She has no eyebrows. She is very saintly. She dresses very badly." While this assessment is harsh, it's very likely that Philip married Mary only for political gain, not for love. This is even sadder considering she had endured a period feeling unloved by her father. Life seemed to offer her no good and her misfortunes continued. Soon after the marriage, it seemed her luck had changed. She stopped menstruating, felt nauseous in the morning, and gained weight. Royal doctors suspected she was pregnant. Everyone was overjoyed. Church bells rang, celebrations took place in the streets. However, although her belly grew, no baby was born. Perhaps she had a tumor, although many assert she suffered from a phantom pregnancy. This is a phenomenon said to occur when a woman desires a child so much that she convinces herself she is pregnant and displays classic pregnancy symptoms. At the time, there was no way to distinguish between a phantom and real pregnancy, only by waiting for the birth. Birthing rooms, nurseries, and cradles were prepared. Letters announcing the birth were pre-written, ready to be sent. Time passed, but still no baby. In denial, Mary continued to claim she could feel the baby moving in her belly. Rumors and speculation spread quickly. Was Mary lying about the pregnancy to give the people hope for an heir? Or perhaps instead of a baby, Mary was carrying a monkey. Finally, even she had to face the truth that she was not pregnant. After 2 phantom pregnancies, Mary faced the harsh reality. She would have no heir. Her childbearing years were past. She was furious at the idea that Elizabeth would inherit the throne after her. She hated Elizabeth for being the daughter of Anne Boleyn, the woman who had started all the misery in Mary's life. She was also extremely jealous of Elizabeth for possessing 2 main qualities Mary lacked: youth and beauty. After a short and disastrous reign, Mary died in 1558. The cause may have been ovarian cancer due to years of untreated endometriosis. Her vision of a Catholic England was shattered. Elizabeth ascended the throne. The final heartbreak. Her husband Philip, whom she loved devotedly, wrote that he felt only moderate sorrow for her. Mary was deceived even after death, as she was not buried next to her mother as requested. Instead, she was buried next to Elizabeth. Worse yet, the shared tomb of Mary and her sister is actually a monument dedicated to Elizabeth, completely overshadowing her. Mary is only commemorated by a black marble slab with her infamous name Bloody Mary on it. In this way, it seems Mary went down in history as one of the biggest losers. She had an extremely difficult life full of grief, pain, and misery. On top of it all, she did not achieve what she wanted in the end. Even in death, she is overshadowed by her sister, and her jealousy very likely extended to the afterlife. So we have together explored the entire story of Mary I's tragic life. From a beloved princess, she became the queen branded with the nickname Bloody Mary. Now, after hearing the whole story, we want to turn to you for your opinion. Was Mary a cruel monster, or was she in fact a victim of unfortunate circumstances, of the psychological trauma and physical pain that plagued her throughout her life? Would she have still burned so many people if she had received more love in her life? Please share your theories and thoughts in the comment section. We look forward to reading the insightful analyses from our community.